Welcome to the Beacon Podcast. Deborah Jane East and Ari Kopel are voices in the wilderness for positive change and a better future. Thank you for listening. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello again. This is Deborah Jane East for the Beacon Podcast. I hope everybody is doing well out there and you're all excited about Christmas coming up. It's hard to believe that it's only just a couple of weeks away. This is December the 7th as I'm speaking. And the first thing I want to say is for everybody to remember my co-host, Ari Koppel, in prayer. She's taking care of a sick family member, and I told her to take as much time as she needed because our family is special and that time is precious. So I would appreciate all the prayers for Ari and her family. Do you believe in miracles? I thought this would be a great time to talk about miracles since Christmas is here. What are miracles? I looked it up in the dictionary. It said that a miracle is an event that is not explainable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore considered to be the work of a divine agency. Another definition said an extraordinary event in the physical world that surpasses all known human or natural powers and is ascribed to as a supernatural cause. But you don't have to take my word that miracles are real. Just go to the Bible. Look at all the miracles that Jesus did. They are well documented. Well documented. There's so many. I guess if I had a favorite, it would be when Jesus put the clay in the blind man's eyes and told him to go to the pool and to wash out his eyes, and he regained his sight back. That was a miracle made so other blind men could see. I'm not talking about physically blind, but spiritually blind. That story just thrills me to death every time I hear somebody talk about it. In fact, I loved it so much that my daughter and I wrote a song about it called Isn't That Just Like Jesus? That is like him. He could make the blind to see. He could heal the crippled man. He could bring the dead back to life. He could part the Red Sea. All of these things Jesus was able to do, and there was no other explanation. No other explanation but him. Now, I have read about car accidents where people saw angels pulling them from the fires before the rescue team got there. I have heard of people with brain tumors that totally disappear. In the 70s, I used to sing with a group and we went to Christian coffee houses. It was there that we met Lenny Stadler. Now, some of you old timers might remember that Lenny used to play in a very well known Southern rock band called Blackfoot. His ambition, though, left him spiritually empty. He felt restless. He was living a lifestyle that he wasn't proud of. His grandfather, who was a very solid Christian, had been praying for him for a long time. And what happened was Lenny wasn't feeling good, so he went to the doctor and they found a tumor in his brain. And the prognosis didn't look good. So Lenny's grandfather came to him and he told him about all the years he'd been praying for him and that he was going to pray that God would take care of this tumor. Well, Lenny got ready for the surgery. He went there and they always do a last image of the tumor to be sure, the size and location and all that kind of stuff. So they did that, and Lenny was waiting in his room, and the doctor came in, and his face was pure puzzlement. And he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but the tumor is completely gone. There is nothing. Lenny knew that the only way this could have happened was because his grandfather was praying for him. So he had a total spiritual overhaul. And he wrote this book called From Hard Rock to Solid Rock, which was released in the fall of 2002. It is the compelling story of God's transforming grace from rock star to United Methodist minister. And I saw him several years ago before he passed away. He still remembered me from those 70s, and the look in his eyes said it all. I know that God really took him on an amazing journey, but that miracle, from the tumor disappearing, I think it just really gave him a new direction in his life, and there was no way he could go back to doing what he used to do. There are different views on the scientific explanation of miracles. Now, some people believe that miracles are events that cannot be explained by scientists. Other people will tell you miracles can be explained by natural laws and things that we don't understand. One thing I'd like to say on miracles is that God gave me a new vision and insight because I was looking at a miracle through different eyes. A bad storm was in our area. It had been raining for days, high winds and everything. And one night it was particularly bad. And my daughter called me the next morning and said that a large tree from the neighbor's yard had fallen on their house. And they lived in a split level. And so this tree came through the corner of the house. It crashed through the roof, knocked holes in their ceiling, and it was pouring the rain. So there was a lot of, rain damage, hit their car, limbs did. I mean, it was pretty extensive. And I really hated this for my daughter. I mean, first of all, they were in the living room. And second of all, it was still raining and it was on a weekend. So, you've got to contact insurance people and it takes a while to get estimates. They had to go get a tarp and, cover the roof as best as they could to keep from more damage. I mean, it's a lot of trouble you have to go through. And then there was the fact that they didn't know if the insurance was going to cover this because some insurance people, they call it a act of God. And I thought, well, will the neighbor's insurance cover it or will theirs? I mean, it was going to be a costly repair, and I just really hated that for them because my daughter is on disability. She has MS, and her husband is the only one that was working. So I really felt horrible. It was just terrible. So after a few days had passed, I called my daughter up to see how the progress was going and on the house repairs. And so she told me, and I had played this song for her, and it was a song about miracles. And I thought, this is such a good song. I want to send it to her. So she really, really liked the song. And I was listening to it as I was talking to her. And then all of a sudden, something came over me. And I asked my daughter, I said, wasn't it just a few years ago that another windstorm came right across from your house? And the young man that was in his bedroom, the tree crashed through there and it killed him. She said, yeah, it was. Yep, the total same thing, but the young man was killed. And she said it was really horrible. And all of a sudden, it was like, bam. I could see this in my mind so clear. And it gives me cold chills now just talking about it. But in my mind, I saw the unseen hand of God reach down and stop that tree and keep that tree from falling on my daughter or my grandchildren because they could have been killed. And God spoke to me and He said, this wasn't a tragedy, this was a miracle. I looked at this through God's eyes. He saved my daughter and grandchildren from being hurt or even killed. So this wasn't just a tragedy of an accident or, that type of thing. It was a miracle from God. It was then I realized that we need to see through God's eyes when some of these things happen and not blame God. And that really changed my whole thought process about miracles and how that we should look at them. So just wanted to throw that in there, you know, and you can ask God to give you new vision and insight. And I think he will. He did me. So both Ari and I pre-recorded our guest miracle stories because these people were on different schedules and stuff. They will introduce themselves and share their miracles. I am sure they will bless you as much as they did us. My first guest is Kay Halasco. So I'm going to turn this over to her, and I hope that her story blesses you. Here's Kay.
Greetings. My name is Karina Halasco, and I'm here to talk about miracles. For me, the word miracle is in every breath I take. We are all miracles. I'm going to read to you a short story about the miracle journey that God chose specifically for me to experience, just like many of you out there. It is called We Are Miracles. But first, a little about me. I am an artist and publisher of Rebel Anthologies. Anthologies is just a fancy word to describe a book that includes lots of different authors or poets. I focus on people who are locked out of the mainstream and yet are really, really talented. Today, I'm honored to be a guest on the Beacon podcast show with my friend Deborah Jane East and host Ari Kopel. And I invite you to send your miracle testimonials, your videos and emails to the links below, and maybe you can be a guest. You can also check out my website, rebelanthologies.com. But I'm not here to talk about books today. Like I said, I'm here to talk about miracles. And not the kind of miracles that are an I pray, I get kind of deal, but miracles that you do not necessarily pray for. Miracles that happen when God uses us as a vessel, an accidental tourist, to show his love to the people and animals he created. We are all miracles. I find myself endlessly fascinating. Is that a bad thing to say? I find myself fascinating because I believe that God finds me fascinating. I believe that every single person fascinates God. I believe what a wise man once said to me, God is learning with you. He sees through your eyes. And I say, show him how beautiful you are. Make him proud of his creations. I believe that. But many years before I got to this point, I lived in purgatory. Not the one that happens when you die, a living purgatory. Lots happened there. Lots of really messed up stuff. For me, anyway, in New York City. Living purgatory is where you put you. And in this purgatory, I lived. But from personal experience, there comes a time when you have overstayed. At that point, you get to a cliff where there is a choice. Commit to your purgatory and kiss all hope goodbye, or not. I was right on that cliff when God found me. Two choices, released or condemned. A no-brainer, right? Just aside, I wrote a group of short stories called How God Found Me. I arrived at the scene about 12:05 a.m. The 7-Eleven on 83rd Street in Manhattan, New York City, treading snow, black ankle boots, and practically too low. Dumb choice. It was the end of a blizzard. The streets were still unplowed, now quiet, no cabs, no people, no noise. Me, treading, smush, smush, crinkle, crinkle. Me, with my red cabbie hat. In my pocket, I had $1.25, just enough to buy a hot dog that had been sitting on the grill all day. So now I'm being evicted again. But this time it has gotten messed up serious. I have no money, which is fine, except my hot dog change. But I have 3 days left for the marshal to come and get physically removed. I have a dog, 2 cats, a 1 overfed goldfish, half a pound shy. So I am freaking out. I'm in panic zone. I cannot think clearly. Kay, I say to myself, you're going to be homeless. I panic. Where will I wash? How do I find tampons? As I get closer to the 7-Eleven, I see two employees with red vests on coming out of the store, dragging 3 huge industrial-sized clear plastic bags. And I can see that they are stuffed full of sandwiches, fresh off the shelf, sealed in solid plastic containers. Hundreds of sandwiches, I kid you not. And I say to them, what is that? And they say to me, the sandwiches are expired. So I'm thinking a week long, probably stale with droopy brown spotted lettuce. I wait till they go back inside the store. I untie the bag from a huge knot. The plastic is thick. It's easy to undo. I take one perfectly packaged ham and cheese sandwich out. The lettuce is still crispy and green. I can even see the fresh yellow cheese. These beautiful sandwiches in their perfectly Windex plastic containers, spotless, waiting to nourish, to feed, to keep humans alive, to fulfill their sole purpose, now thrown out for compost. I look at the expiry date. That same night, 12 a.m., it's only 12:05. The sandwich were merely 5 minutes over their expiry date. So God says to me, but since I don't believe in him, then I figure I'm obviously cracking under the stress. The voice must be in my head. At this point, I have nothing left to lose. So I say back, whoever you think you are, I'm being evicted from my home by a scum lord. There is a marshal notice pasted to my door. Silence. God's will, God's way. I grab a couple sandwiches for my journey on the streets of New York City. 3 days left and counting. And as I turn to walk back home with my hands full of good fortune, I hear that voice again. Didn't say I will be protective. Didn't say I'll save you or that everything happens for a reason. Nope, nada. The only reason that I will become homeless is because I can't pay the rent. As far as I was concerned, God had nothing to do with it. But ironically, at that time in New York City, all the food earmarked for the homeless or nomadic population had been cut. Pantries were shut down, and the churches had their food sources emptied and could not offer any hot meals anymore. They were freaking out. So this voice says to me, take these bags to the church. And at this point, I was willing to do anything to stop thinking about my impending doom. I did not know it then, but God opened a door for me that I would just have to walk through to release me from my purgatory. He had opened many doors for me over the years, but like an unruly child, I'd shut them all in his face. Now, I had no choice. If I wanted to save myself, I had to pick up those bags. I slung one over my shoulder like Santa Claus and dragged the other 2 in the snow down the street, 10 blocks to 73rd and York Avenue to a church called Church of the Epiphany. And for 4 months, 7 days a week in the snow, I trudged from 7-Eleven to the church during one of the worst food shortages in the city. This was so not about me. God found me, and I knew now what a privilege it was to be blessed to be a vessel for God when I didn't even believe in him, to help feed hundreds of the people he loves, the poor, the cold, the hungry, sandwiches, which they could take with them out into the cold to eat for later in the dark city. God cared more about the prayers of his people who were hungry, people who I would live among in 3 days when the marshal came. And he was using me as a vessel to complete his vision. God worked with me. I worked with him. He saw through my eyes. I participated with God in a miracle made specially for me. And so I trudged with those heavy bags back and forth in my red cabbie hat and cold black ankle boots. Too short, dumb choice, endlessly fascinating. And if you are waiting for me to give you a come to Jesus ending and make something up like an eviction lawyer found me dragging the bags of sandwiches down the street and saved me, and I was somehow rewarded by God because I listened and acted. No, 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 no. It doesn't work that way, not even close. What happened to me next is private between me and my God and took years, but I'll save that for another story. Safe to say, I learned purgatory is a ladder. I went down step by step. Now I have to go up. Unfortunately for me, I was only on rung one, but I'm here right now sharing my story with you. So that says something. Thanks for listening. Hope to hear from you soon. And thanks to the Beacon Podcast, Deborah and Ari, for having me here today.
Was that a good story or what? It was amazing. Kay has many more miracles that she can talk about, and I hope she will at a later date. But this is one of my favorite stories, and things that you don't even realize are going to be used sometimes to make you a part of a miracle. Thank you, Kay. And like she said, if you have a miracle, please get in touch with us. We want to have you on our show. Our next two guests are from Ari Koppel, my co host, and the first one is going to be Angela Proctor. Her story is especially touching. So, without further delay, I'm going to turn the story over to Angela.
Hi, this is Angela Proctor. I am from Tennessee, and I want to tell you my miracle. I have a daughter who's 21. She went to Argentina to study Spanish from January to April 2023. And while she was there, she decided she wanted to play basketball at a gym, but she had to go get a physical. So she thought about it. She almost backed out. And then she said, no, I'm going to do it because I still have 6 weeks here. So she went to the doctor. They did a physical. It cost like $12. And they found a 3.5 centimeter hole in her heart that was totally missed her whole life. I took her to physicals to her pediatrician. When she was playing basketball, she couldn't breathe good. So we thought she had asthma. It wasn't asthma, but there were several physicians who missed it. That's just the way it goes. They didn't hear it, even though it was very big. They didn't hear it. But it took her going to Argentina, and they actually gave her money back and said she failed her physical. So she came home, and of course, we're devastated. She's devastated. And she told me she did research, and she said that if she had not found this out by the time she was 25, her expected living would have been 40 and absolutely no children. So it was truly a miracle. She's going to get it fixed now. We already have a doctor's appointment ready to go. Her heart will go back to normal because she does have one side of her heart bigger than the other. We didn't know that. But as soon as the hole is repaired, her heart will go back down, which is the miracle, because if she waited to 25 years old, it would not have gone back down. So, yes, we're all excited. Were we all just kind of angry and upset? Yeah, we were for a little while, and especially her, because she couldn't understand how we all missed it. The only sign I ever had was when she was little, she had pneumonia a lot, which is part of a sign, just so people know. I asked her pediatrician why she was getting pneumonia all the time, and she said every child is different. But what I did was I started giving her liquid silver instead of the antibiotics. As soon as I saw she was getting a little sniffle and it going down to her chest, I just gave her the silver, and she just in one day was okay. I just wanted to say that the antibiotics were not working. But I think it was because she had such a massive, opening in her heart that it was just difficult. Also, she played basketball, she played tennis, she played track. She did a full set of dental work for years and years. which is very dangerous with this condition because you can actually pick up a fungus in the heart through dental work. So it was a real miracle on all different levels, really. So I think that's really about it. I'm very grateful, and I'm just so grateful. I'm going into the gratitude instead of the questioning, how did this happen? I'm just very thankful, and so is my whole family.
It's getting good, isn't it? Oh my gosh, that just was an amazing story. But we have one more guest from Ari. And let me tell you, this one was really close to my heart. And what she went through, I could just hear in her voice the amazement and just how thankful she was that she had intervention and that their lives were spared from serious harm. Her name is Raven Redfeather. So get you a cup of coffee, get ready. We're going to play her story, and I hope that it touches you as much as it did me.
Hi, my name's Raven Redfeather, and I'm here from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I just wanted to share a miracle that had occurred to me, for me, on divine intervention back years ago when I was living in Colorado and had gone to a social engagement with my partner at the time and a friend. And this was in wintertime, and we had gone to this social engagement, which was held at a remote location, kind of on top of a mountain, and small town. And as we were leaving that event, my partner at the time decided that since it was a long drive, and it was getting late, he wanted to take a fast route. So instead of taking the highway, he decided to take the forestry roads. So those are dirt roads that really don't get traveled on and very remote, that just wind through the mountains. At any rate, it started to snow and nightfall was coming, and I was a little nervous, to say the least. And but my partner was a very good driver, and so I'm like, well, must be okay. It'll be fine. But about 45-minute drive through the mountains, we went around a hairpin turn and hit ice and started to slide off the mountain. Luckily, my partner had his wits about him to at least turn hard the wheel so that we went straight down as if we were driving versus rolling down the cliff. And this, it was all covered with snow because it had already, it was wintertime. The mountains were covered with snow, but it was also snowing at the time. It was a steep way down, and I'm thinking my legs might get crushed, basically, very steep incline down as we're going. And luckily, we did not hit this giant boulder, which was right next to where we ended up stopping. And we did not continue down off another cliff. We actually hit some very strong scrub oaks and stopped. But in the meantime, we had, so we all were okay. However, the car was destroyed, gas tanks shattered. So gas all over the place, the smell of gas, gasoline. So we couldn't stay in the car because of the gasoline smell. And so we immediately got out of the car, and we're standing in like thigh deep snow. We weren't really dressed for this kind of snow, and nightfall was coming and it was snowing. And my partner tried to use his phone to call the police, and but it wasn't working, and he was having trouble getting through. Because it wasn't much signal, because we were out in the middle of nowhere. We were basically a 45-minute drive in either direction to any form of civilization. And nightfall's coming, and my partner's just trying to figure out the phone and how to call people. And I'm like, no, we've got to go up there and see if there's any other crazy person who's coming down this mountain at this time of night. and try to flag them down. So at any rate, I really felt I was divinely guided at that time because we were discussing what to do. There certainly was no option for like making a campfire type of thing. Anyways, so nightfall's coming. I decide to climb up through the snow, up this side of the hill, the mountain where we had gone over. And just as I was cresting, basically, climbing up over the edge, another crazy person, wonderful, divine, crazy person, had decided to take that route as well, who had been at the gathering. But they were, being extremely cautious. So they were able to do almost like a 3-point turn to go down the hairpin turn. And I flagged them down. And we were able to, I had to go back down, tell them. And by the time we got up and in the car, it was nighttime and it was dark. And they drove us, all squashed in the back, the 45 minutes to the nearest town, where we then were able to contact somebody to come pick us up and drive us the rest of the way home. And the car, which was totaled, it took probably, I can't remember, it was a month, 6 weeks before they found it. But I really feel like it was divine intervention and grace of God, because we would have frozen, and like there was no place to walk to. So I really feel very fortunate. Yeah, I've got amazing guardian angels, so looking out for me, and I feel very blessed. And we were all blessed that day. And I certainly am grateful to the people who were, who gave us the ride. So, anyways, that certainly means a lot to me, and I just thought I'd like to share it. Thank you.
Well, that is our final story on miracles on this podcast. We want to make this a regular feature, at least every month or so. But we want your miracle stories. We'll pre-record them. It will be easy. You won't be nervous. It's very simple. I'll set up an appointment time with you. You only have to talk just a couple of minutes if you want to. We just want people to know that miracles are an ongoing thing. And if I could leave one message with you at the end of this podcast is, just like Kay, you never know when God is going to use you to be a part of a miracle. I remember one time when I was doing social work, I was trying to track down a patient of mine, and she had been homeless and she was staying at a motel. So I had the phone number and the room number, and I called that room. A gentleman answered. His first name was John, and I asked him if my client was there, and he said, "No, I just rented this room last night." And he kept on saying, "Who are you? Who are you?" And I said, "Well, my name is Deborah, and I'm just trying to get in touch with this person." And he said, "I'm sitting here right now, and I've got a gun in my hand, and I don't want to live." And that really surprised me. I thought, oh gosh, what do I do? I asked him what had happened, and he said his wife had got killed, was in a car accident. And the reason he was there in that motel was he was drinking. He had been on a big binge. He had been driving for 5 or 6 days, not even knowing where he was going or anything. But he had an accident and it totaled his car. So he was going to have to stay there for a while until he could find somebody to come and get him. So he said, "I can't live without her. I can't live without her." And he said, "There is one bullet in this gun, but that's all I need." I said, "Stop. Is it okay if I pray for you right now?" And I heard him sobbing. And he said in a slow voice, "If you want to." I bowed my head at that desk and I started praying. Heavenly Father, you know right now what's in John's heart. You know the pain that he is carrying and how much he loved his wife. And he's a little lost right now. but you are the one that can guide him and keep his head above water and show him that there is life, there is hope, and there are things that John can do in this world and make a difference. And if you would lift him up, if you would help him put that gun away and open his eyes and show him how much he is loved, that you can keep him safe. And then all I heard was quiet on the other end of the phone line. He said, I'm going to put this gun away. He said, I realize I've been running from God this whole time, and I'm not going to hurt myself. I told him, I said, well, I want to send a pastor to see you right now, and I'm going to give you my personal phone number so I can keep in touch with you to know that you're okay. And he said, don't worry, I will not use this gun. He said, I just feel like God has run all over me, and thank you for praying for me. So I hung up the phone. I thought, wow, what an experience. It's a good thing I called. And even though it was like sort of a wrong number, wasn't the right place I was supposed to talk to, it was the right number. It was exactly where God wanted me to call. It was exactly what God wanted me to do, to pray for that man. Well, the next day, he said, I drove back home last night, and he said, I called my pastor, and he said, my pastor came over. He said, I can't wait to stand up and testify in church what God has done. He saved me from the brink of death. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. Isn't that amazing? Sometimes, just like Kay, you can be the miracle. You can be the one that makes a difference in someone's life. So follow those inner voices. Follow those things that tell you you can make a difference. Don't be afraid. Sometimes just giving someone a hug and tell them that you're thinking about them and you're praying for them. Miracles don't have to be huge. They can be small, and sometimes those small miracles are the best ones of all. So I hope your holiday is bright and festive. If you want to contact us about your miracle, our links are in the description box below. And I want to tell everyone, I'm praying for you that doors will open and that you will understand and see that you just might make the difference in someone's life. Well, that's our show. This is Deborah Jane East for the Beacon Podcast. Everyone take care. I wish you all a wonderful Christmas, and we'll be back soon.
You have been listening to Deborah Jane East and Ari Kopel on the Beacon Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube to catch our next episode.